Hi guys, thanks for joining me. So tonight I want to continue on the series of videos that I'm making for social success for teens with autism. I want to talk about tonight how to spot 4 types of negative self-talk and how that may look for individuals who are struggling with recognizing social cues or becoming more independent in a social situation, um, and possibly give you some scenarios of how that may look and maybe some tips on how to help your loved one or yourself, how to work through switching off that negative self-talk that happens. So it's really no secret that the way we communicate with ourselves plays a major role in the way that we see and experience our surroundings and the world around us. That is not only for people with autism, obviously, but that's for anyone who is able to communicate in a social way. Unfortunately, it's really hard to completely turn off our negative self-talk. But the main thing that we can do and how you can help your child or your student, your loved one who may have autism, is to be mindful, to be aware of how these things are affecting you, how this self-talk is affecting social situations. So once you are able to notice your self-talk, then you're able to unlock greater flexibility and deal with how to change these thoughts. The tricky thing about negative self-talk is that it comes in many forms. And if you look at the Mayo Clinic, they talk about 4 main ones, 4 types of negative self-talk. And that's personalizing, filtering, catastrophizing, and polarizing. So I want to break down each one of these types of self-talk, negative self-talk, and maybe share some tips on how to overcome it. So if you're interested, stick around. Okay, so when you're personalizing, type number 1, personalizing. So personalizing is basically when you get into that mode of saying, oh, it's not you, it's me. And that kind of becomes like your mantra. If something bad happens to you or to people around you that you love, or if you notice that your child or student is doing this, you automatically blame yourself, or you're seeing that that person is automatically blaming themselves. That's personalizing. And so, like for instance, let's say you're in a group text chat, okay? And you text the chat, the group, you text the group a funny meme or something like that. And the group doesn't automatically give you an emotion, a reaction, or a response. And maybe it takes a little bit longer for them to reply than normally. You start to think to yourself, oh my gosh, everybody's probably mad at me, or maybe they don't want to be friends with me anymore. If you see that your child, your teen, your loved one, your student who has autism tends to be a little bit more focused on how they did something wrong or how their actions are causing an action or a reaction from somebody. Um, that's what personalizing negative self-talk looks like. And all of it may be true. I mean, maybe it's a possibility that the whole group is mad at you or they don't want to be friends with you anymore. But on the norm, if these are your friends and it just seems kind of out of the blue, then it could just be that they're having a very busy day. And it doesn't have anything to do with you or anything that you've done. And you may see a student or your child or even yourself, having that negative self-thought of, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? Or always taking the blame. So there's a couple of things that you want to do to make sure that it isn't that rare situation where maybe the whole group doesn't like you. So you just take a minute and you help your child or your student or yourself. If the next time you feel like as though you're to blame or something goes wrong that's different than normal, you want to just take a step back, take a deep breath, and look at the situation from the outside. That is being mindful. That is bringing mindfulness into the situation. And you really just want to take the first step to just do some reality testing. And how that can be is that you do some challenging the thought and asking yourself and encouraging your student or your child to ask themselves, is there any evidence to support this thought? And it may be that you have to actually write it down. Some individuals that are on the spectrum, they're very black and white, and having an opportunity to write it down on paper. These are my friends. This is what I said. What is the evidence that supports the thought that negative personalizing self-talk, that you're taking the blame or your child or your student is taking the blame? Where is that coming from, and what is the evidence that supports that? And the second thing is the thought a fact? Is it factual, or is it just that individual or your own perception and interpretation of the situation? So you can do those two things first, because then you're just, you're starting with challenging the thought. And then the next step or the next option is to give an alternative explanation to counteract that negative thought. So, you can say, okay, nobody wants to be my friend. And if you're feeling that and you feel that coming in, or you see your student always looking sad, or your child always looking sad or feeling or moping around or taking the blame, once you get that idea of it could be an alternate explanation, write that down or have them write that down. So I feel like my friends don't want to be my friends because they haven't responded to my text message. They must hate me. They're mad at me. They don't want to be my friends. What's the alternative explanation? Obviously, they could be busy. It could be a very busy day. It could be a holiday. whatever the situation may be. So, in closing on that first negative self talk type is, the next time you see your student or your child or yourself and you're feeling like as though you're to blame, that something's going wrong or seems different than normal, take a step back, breathe deeply, look at the situation from the outside. And more than likely, statistics shows that it's just your brain playing tricks on you. Okay, so the second type of negative self-talk is filtering. So filtering is when you magnify or blow up the negative aspects of a specific situation. And then you filter out all the positive ones. So what does that look like? Okay. Let's say, for example, you're trying to save money and you go out to buy something and you go over your budget by $50 after you've done your bills for the month, and you realize, I couldn't stay within budget and it's $50. You might get caught up on that instead of the fact that you still put $200 in savings. So when you begin to look at that glass as half full instead of half empty, you'll begin to feel life so much more in a rewarding way. Filtering is the negative Nancy in your life. Filtering will just, those people, whether they're on the spectrum or whether they're neurotypical, where it does not matter. They are going to focus on the one thing that's wrong with the situation instead of the 100 things that are right. And for teens, even teens that are neurotypical and are not dealing with autism and struggling through being social and learning social cues and learning how to be in a social world, sometimes that filtering just repeats and repeats and repeats in your mind that it's hard to counteract a positive, So you have to think about that. A way to kind of switch your thinking is that for every accomplishment, no matter how big or how small, can outweigh the negative. And if you find, as a tip, if you find yourself or if you see your child or your student filtering or making things way worse than what maybe the situation holds, or picking out that negative, a way to do it is to write down all the things that have gone right recently. Again, individuals with autism, they're very, concrete individuals. I'm not saying that as a whole population, but in general, black and white, there's no gray. So if you're writing a list and you're making that visual list and you can see that and you can help your child or your student see that, okay, so this one thing has happened and it's negative, but tell me all the positive things. Your brain will slowly begin to realize that things may not be as bad as what they really seem. So, again, we are just bringing awareness. We are, being mindful of what our thinking patterns are and writing things down and accompanying those thoughts with a different perspective will begin to change your cognitive or your thinking way of thinking. Okay, so number 3, negative talk number 3 is catastrophizing. So that's a big word. And, it's catastrophic. It's a catastrophe. With catastrophizing, the person that tends to do this negative self-thought talk to themselves automatically anticipates the worst. And teens in general do this naturally already because, if you've ever been in a junior high classroom or been around, kids ages 13 to 17, you will see that everything is a catastrophe in their minds. And with individuals that have autism, it can feel like a catastrophic event if you don't really know how to process and read social cues around you. It can be that, oh my gosh, I'm making this way worse than what it really is. So an example for this is, say, a kid is on their way. Okay, let me start over. So your child who has autism, you've seen this in your child before. You're going on the road, you're driving in the car, and there's a wreck or there's road construction and you get in traffic. Anxiety may start to form in your child in the back seat, and it can be a situation where they are feeling like that they're going to be stuck in this traffic for hours and they're going to miss their favorite show at 6 p.m. or they're not going to be able, their schedule has been interrupted or disrupted. Catastrophizing the situation causes anxiety, and if that child or that individual with autism is in a social situation, it can be very stressful for them, and then they may say things that aren't appropriate or socially accepted or on the social norm. They can start to feel other self-talk starts going through their mind, and it just becomes a catastrophe. It's basically what it is. So putting things into perspective, like how likely is this going to happen that I'm going to be stuck on this traffic for days? It's not likely going to happen. Again, mindfulness, again, changing that behavior of thinking, and reminding your child, your student, yourself, that distinguishing between uncomfortable and I don't like this right now to really this is a catastrophe will help bridge that social gap of understanding that life involves hiccups and roadblocks and detours. Can we be stuck in traffic for hours? Yes, that can happen. But will you still be okay? Yes, most likely. You would still be okay. Let's see. Just taking a step back and being more mindful of your thinking process can really come in handy in a situation where you're feeling like everything is a catastrophe. Okay, so number 4 is polarizing. So this is where when you see things as either really good or really bad, there's no in between. And with individuals with autism, again, very black and white individuals. It's either I'm having a fantastic day or I'm having the worst day of my life. Even though our general normal days fall in between that gray spectrum. For polarizing negative self-talk, there is no middle. You'll see your student, your child, yourself, feeling that you're perfect or you're a failure, or the day is perfect or it's a failure. Let's see. An example of this could be that you've been getting up early all week. It's Friday and you just feel like you need to get a little bit more sleep, so you hit snooze. And for some reason, that negative self-talk on the polarizing kicks in and you automatically think, I am a lazy person because I'm hitting snooze. No, you're not. You've been waking up on time or early all week, and your body wants to have a little bit of 9 more minutes of sleep. That does not make you a lazy person. It's called balance. So in order to move out of that thought process, again, start with just treating yourself with kindness, loving yourself enough to know that you can make good decisions, teaching your child, your student, that it's normal to do things like that and that you're only human. I personally like to make goals. If someone sets a goal for me, I will procrastinate. I will put it off. I will sometimes not reach the goal. That way with deadlines. I am deadline driven. If I'm given 5 weeks to finish a paper, I will do it the last day before I have to turn it in, instead of writing a little bit on the way. Sometimes I feel guilty about that because I think, why didn't I just do it during that 5 weeks? The thing is that you can make choices in your life, and you can decide if you want to change your mind. It's okay. Now, do you want to constantly be indecisive? No. And if your child or you are feeling like you cannot make a decision, then that's a whole other lesson that we can talk about. But if you feel bad that you're changing your mind, then it's okay if you just become more mindful of the fact that a lesson can be learned, a choice can happen. And the motivation is to keep trying and to not automatically assume that you're good or bad because of the choices that you're making. I mean, it's a lifetime experiment in trying to work through personal goals and reaching those goals. So going through these 4 types of negative self-talk, we see that it's going to take practice. You're going to need to, as an individual that maybe does these type of negative self-talks in your own mind, or if you see that in your student or your child, it doesn't happen overnight. There's not a switch that you can just click and your brain goes, okay, I'm not going to think that anymore. I know firsthand that self-talk is very hard to shake. And I don't have autism. For people that are dealing with significant to moderate types of social deficits, self-talk is a power that can be debilitating, or it can be so powerful, such a positive. But it's just finding that level of mindfulness. So practicing positivity isn't necessarily about disregarding the unfortunate nature of a situation, but instead you're learning to acknowledge that you can find a way around it. So you can always start off the day with like positive affirmations. I have on my mirror in my, dressing area, positive vibes only, because I have to work to be in a positive mindset. And if you're not working to train your brain to do that, then your brain is just automatically going to go to that negative self-talk. So I hope this was helpful. I know it kind of got a little lengthy, but I feel it's a really important topic to talk about, and helping our teens, especially teens that maybe are on the spectrum, learn how to spot that negative self-talk and how to build those brain maps to change that type of thinking. I hope this was helpful and encouraging. And if you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section, and I will see you again soon. Bye.